There's a thought that sits quietly in the back of every driven man's head. It's the one that he rarely says out loud. What if I never become the man that I know I could be? It's you not operating from the most fulfilled and purpose-driven frame that you could be, losing respect from your partner as a result, your kids, and the people who look to you. And when you slow down long enough, you start to see it. You start to see you're probably actually not stuck in business. You're stuck in yourself. Self-doubt, overthinking, procrastination, perfectionism, the fear of committing when it matters the most, when you need to take action. It's the quiet people-pleasing that keeps you burdened, distracted, and out of your own alignment, which compounds the real constraints that already hold you back on a deeper level. And it's frustrating as hell because the bigger threat here to your success, it isn't other people, it isn't bad luck, and it isn't timing. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not. It's your own resistance to doing what you already know that you need to do and looking at what you know needs your attention. You're the one who's pulling up the handbrake while simultaneously hitting the accelerator. And that's tough to accept. And I know because I've sabotaged myself more times than I can count. And I've had a long trail of self-betrayal to clean up. But I've also learned that taking responsibility with self-awareness is one of the most powerful moves you can make because it stops you operating blindly, from getting lost in the busy work and from losing perspective. My own sabotage wasn't because I wasn't worthy of my potential. It wasn't because someone else got in my way. It wasn't because my plans and my goals weren't good enough. It was because in the moment when the needle could have moved and probably should have moved, when I could have made the shift, avoiding the threat felt safer than chasing the reward I was after. And rarely does the $1 million strategy fix that. Strategy does have its place, but it's a very small one because when you try to solve emotional and spiritual problems with these tactical and strategic solutions, you end up running faster in the wrong direction. This is a really good lens to think about things through. If you are stuck, it actually could be that you don't want to let go because on a deeply unconscious level, you might not want change because it would threaten your identity as a hard done by or unworthy person. And sometimes it's also just not the pain you're clinging to. It's actually past successes you're holding on to and even a loss you haven't learned to release yet. And in some cases, and this is very real for me recently in life, is that life can actually be really good too. And despite having that goal for a greater vision for your life and for your family and where things could go, the present moment isn't all that bad. So anything that feels like it's going to push you forward or pull you forward is even better. You're then going to ignore or deny or even sabotage the positives that will move you forward. And instead, you'll seek out the familiar, which is often quite negative. Why? Well, because the thought of moving beyond that, it feels like losing control to you and to your system. And to keep control, we repeat the same patterns of thinking and behavior that kept us stuck in the first place. The moment you procrastinate, you overthink, you get stuck in that spiral, that loop, or you pull back right before things are about to click, that's not laziness. It's not just laziness. Because I'm far from a lazy person. It's your subconscious clinging to the safe and the familiar, running on a survival response to keep control. In my experience, it's the most self-defeating and frustrating thing because your mind knows exactly what to do. And you probably know exactly what to do in order to succeed in whatever you're shooting for. But there is still something internal holding you back, and you can't quite grasp that with two hands. So you turn to yourself when you're alone, when you're with your thoughts that suggest that you're not enough. And this has a net negative effect on everything you do, every area of your life. In order to understand sabotage a little bit deeper, which will help us really transform it, we need to break it up into its two core principles that drive our survival as a species. The first is attaining rewards. The second is avoiding threats. All of our decision-making is predicated by the pleasure and pain cycle. That is the pull towards pleasure and the push away from pain. Every part of decision-making in our brain, everything we do in our life is predicated by this. And self-sabotage kicks in when avoiding a threat feels safer than chasing the reward you're after. That's it. And that's why even billionaires get in their own way. Like if you think about it, you want to launch a business, you want to expand your company, hit a stage, or even ask for a promotion. But deep down, your mind whispers, what if I fail? What if they reject me? What if I lose what I already have? It's that fear that registers as a bigger threat than the reward that you're actually chasing. So you hesitate, you stall, you'll pull back, and then you'll call it procrastination or a lack of discipline. That's the easy and obvious thing to point it to. But really, it's survival. You start writing a book, launching that business, or recording content, practicing your visibility online. But the second things start to gain traction, you pause. You go for one more round of tweaks. You hold back on putting things out. The project stalls. Why? Because on that deep level, your identity says, I'm not really an expert. I'm not worthy of putting this out. I will fail. So you keep your projects unfinished, and this protects you from the risk of exposure. Or another example is when you commit to training yourself, building the body that you've always desired. First week, you're consistent. The second week, you start forgetting your gym bag. You're staying up late, eating shit food, and telling yourself, I'll restart it all on Monday. Deep down, it's your identity that whispers, I never stick to things. I can't see this through. So you quit. And it's not because you're lazy. Partly it is, but it's not because you're lazy in this context. It's because failing early feels safer to you than risking the proof that you can't really change. That's the belief. That's the identity. And self-sabotage is when you undercut your own ability to achieve a goal, to follow through on your vision, to hold your word and fulfill any intention of any kind. It feels irrational on the surface, but it's not. It's your mind running a deeper program. And replacing self-sabotage with self-improvement, it isn't about hype and pumping yourself up with motivation. It's quite literally about evidence. And to grow, you have to create that evidence. You create evidence that you are who you say you are. And why that's so important is because happiness shows up when what you think, what you say, and who you are, it all points in the same direction. Whenever I'm feeling a bit off track, misguided, or things are going on internally, maybe there's a bit of suffering, I look to this. It's a very, very sound way to head in the right direction, and life tends to move around that aim. The most grounded way to understand this is through something called the belief cycle. For over a decade, I've taught clients how to spot their blind spots and how to reshape limiting beliefs, which are quite literally the building blocks of our reality. And the thing is that most of these beliefs, they were formed by the age of 7 as your brain and your nervous system adapted to survive based off of the contents of the environment that you were raised in. When we sabotage, we resort back to these building blocks of our reality, where our beliefs have been adopted, that have been largely formed by the age of 7, where our brain and nervous system has learnt through modeling behavior, making necessary and genius adaptations to its environment so it can essentially navigate things as it is. So self-sabotage is actually part of our neurobiology, and the roots of self-sabotage are actually part of these ancestral adaptations we've made over time that allowed us to progress and to develop as a species. And based on those building blocks and their subsets of values, self-sabotage is designed to support your inner hypothesis of who you think you are. If your identity whispers to you, I'm a failure, your behavior will quietly match and mirror that belief. It's like an upside down win that the system creates. You feel like you've proven yourself right in a way. Great example I heard actually on a recent podcast. I'm going to reuse this because it's a really good one. Let's just say that your father earned $80,000 per year. That's the most he's ever made in his career. Now, as an adult, there's something that you just can't seem to break past that same number or around that ballpark figure. Why? Well, because perhaps on some level, earning more than him feels disrespectful. And when you layer on top of it beliefs like money doesn't grow on trees, rich people are greedy, I'm not that worthy, your subconscious then steps in below the level of your awareness, not to punish you, but to keep you safe within a certain bandwidth and parameter. Because that's what the building blocks are mirroring back to you. Sometimes it's the only part of your life that you actually feel like you can control. That's why it's important to understand and acknowledge that we actually do seek control. And you're not wrecking it for yourself for no reason. Like, no mentally stable person would go out there and try to wreck their life deliberately. You're protecting an identity that doesn't feel safe with letting go. So the reframe, when we start talking about self-sabotage and self-improvement and moving from self-sabotage to self-improvement, there's reframe that needs to happen. There is understanding through self-awareness. There's a whole repatterning of the nervous system and of stretching a perspective. But we can really help ourselves out when we understand that self-sabotage isn't proof that we're broken. It's actually just simple proof that we're human, as I was saying with our neurobiology. And if you know how to read it and interpret it through self-awareness, it can become one of your most powerful tools for your growth. Because the same mechanism, the very same mechanism that protects you, it can, with awareness and practice, point you directly to the places that you're ready to evolve. And what's interesting is that every next level in your life, or every new level you want to enter in life, it's always going to come through the parts of yourself that you tend to avoid. So now I'm going to give you, to support you further in this, just a bit of an additional, I'm going to give you insight, a bit of a behind the scenes access into how we go about overcoming limiting core beliefs and transforming ourselves in my mastermind. This is actually a recorded training from a few years ago within a course that helps you overcome negative core beliefs so you can achieve more success in life. Now, before I play you this resource, I want you to grab the Confidence Kickstart that's in the show notes. It's a communication cheat sheet with a bonus mini training that will help you shift and turn self-sabotage into self-improvement. And because this work is actually so largely unconscious, I really do suggest working with a professional, a consultant, someone in this area of work. And if you are ready to go to the next level and go deeper into this stuff, the Prosperity Mastermind is where high-performing men uncover these blind spots. We dissolve limiting beliefs that are out of balance and these certain subconscious structures to help you build the kind of leadership and communication that makes you impossible to ignore, and it helps you get the results you're looking for in life. For a very limited time as well, I've got one-to-one places to work with me. You'll have to book a call for that, and they are limited. In the next episode, we're going to navigate the fear of conflict and how to speak up to get what you want in life. To develop high-value skills like self-awareness and emotional intelligence, one must understand how they think and operate the way they do. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and to understand one's own thoughts, feelings, and emotions. It's a powerful ability because it allows individuals to reflect on their own behavior and understand how it affects other people, which can lead to better communication, decision-making, and problem-solving skills and abilities. Self-awareness also allows us to recognize and understand our strengths and our weaknesses too, which can develop strategies to help improve us as individuals, both professionally and personally. We can also become more empathetic and understanding towards other people, which is a true superpower in all human relationships. We're able to organize and to separate the emotions of ourselves and what we're experiencing from, everyone else around us. To best understand this, I'll quickly take you through this cycle, right? Say you're someone who is feeling unworthy and you feel worthless as a belief unconsciously. Now that belief is the building block of your reality. So if you want change, you need to go there. Let's say because of this belief of unworthiness, someone like your boss has said to you or put you down in front of people and it exposes you in front of others. Something that gets triggered now and it elicits a strong emotional response that leads us to feeling an emotion like hurt, sadness, pain, fear. We might feel alone, shame, angry, annoyed, and worthless. This is the automatic emotional response to your trigger. And from that emotional trigger, that if it's strong enough, it often hijacks our higher thinking faculties and our physiology. We then form a thought response to the trigger. So for example, I'm an imposter. I'm not worthy of my role. What was I thinking? What are people thinking of me now? This is your thought about yourself, and it's connected to your emotional response to defend or to dramatize what's happening. Because you are hijacked emotionally, you can't see things from an open and higher perspective and find it very hard to challenge it. Maybe it's more about the boss than it is you, but because you react and you take action on what you feel because of what you believe, this is the response to your trigger. you might not know how to respond then, and your response might be to run out the room, quit your job, and shut down. Then you're left with an outcome, which might be jobless, you struggle to find a job, you start drinking, and that leads to a breakdown of the family unit because of the financial burden. Our work is to gain insight into our emotions, reactions, thoughts, and default responses. When we are free of things emotionally, we find freedom and peace of mind, because peace of mind is actually peace from mind. And it's through this work and getting this tremendous insight into our personality, but more so our character, that we find the freedom and the personal power that we long for.